Kagate Ulusoy's boldest gamble has finally arrived, and Hazal is right there at the center of the storm with him. Welcome to Turkish series stars. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe and support the channel, friends. When myths step back onto the stage, expectations explode. Sandoken, the Malayan tiger born from Emilio Salgari's imagination, roared back onto television after years of silence, and this time the face of the legend is none other than Kagate. But did the myth truly awaken? Or did we watch an extravagant shell wrapped around a heart that hasn't started pounding yet? The first season, broadcast on Rai 1 and freshly concluded after 8 episodes, split its audience with huge action, a sprawling ensemble, and performances that everyone is arguing about. Is Kagate truly Sandoken? Did the story hit, miss, or hover somewhere in between? And what kind of promise does a second season hold? Stay with me as we unpack all of it with a sensational spirit and a sincere eye. Let's step back and look at the larger picture. Television has a way of circling back to its old treasures, polishing them and presenting them anew. Nostalgia doesn't just sell, it connects. Sandoken is one of those enduring names, a literary pirate whose legend has survived generations. The new series drapes Salgari's world in a modern visual language, an international cast, and, crucially, a star power that travels beyond borders. With 8 episodes on Rai 1, this wasn't just a seasonal offering, it was a high-stakes experiment with the weight of memory on its shoulders. One of the show's boldest creative swings was not to drop us immediately into the fully formed myth, but to rewind to the person behind the banner. In the novels, Sandoken stands tall as a symbol of resistance to British colonialism, a charismatic flame that draws people in. The series leans into what happened before the legend became legend, the wounds, the losses, the contradictions, the forging heat that turns raw ore into steel. It's a smart instinct for our era, where audiences want to see the scars as much as the swagger. But it's also a tightrope. Because when you revive a figure as storied as Sandoken, fans arrive expecting an aura, that instant gravity, the kind of leadership that pulls the camera like a tide. Some chapters deliver that electricity. Others let the pulse slacken. You feel ambition everywhere, but the epic crescendo occasionally slips through the fingers. Now to the heart of the fire, Kagate Ulusoy as Sandoken. Physically, he owns it. Sword in hand, he looks like he was raised on the deck of a ship. The chase scenes breathe, the spray of the sea reads as real, and the horseback sequences show meticulous preparation. It's obvious he trained brutally and that he insisted on doing as much as possible himself. That commitment bleeds onto the screen in the best way, the shoulders, the gaze, the grounded stance, all speaking the language of a man molded by the elements. Action asks for believability or it collapses, he gives it solidity. But Sandoken isn't just steel and salt air, he's also longing and fury and a private compass that keeps swinging between vengeance and hope. And here the show sometimes falters, not because Kagate doesn't reach, but because the material doesn't always give him the room to bleed. When the story pauses for feeling, when the mask should crack, the camera doesn't linger long enough, or the dialogue schemes the surface. The result? Moments that suggest depths but leave you touching the glass instead of the water. This becomes most visible in the exchanges that should blaze, Sandoken with Lady Mariana. Hazal steps into Lady Mariana like a woman who knows the cost of every choice. In a world policed by men and rigid rules, her silence says as much as any monologue. You see calculation, compassion, defiance, often in the same close-up. Hazal doesn't play Marianna as a decorative prize, she plays her as a strategist with a fragile heart, a person whose softness is a decision, not a weakness. And yet the script sometimes pulls the rug out from under her motivations. We are told she is torn, that her pull towards Sandoken is irresistible, but in certain episodes the emotional math is thin. Why risk everything? Why defy a world that would swallow her whole? We sense the reason in glances and pauses, we want the writing to say it out loud. There are sequences where Hazal's craft supplies what the page does not, a trembling breath here, a clenched jaw there, and those beats are the ones that glow. When she and Kagate lock eyes and the editing trusts the moment, the promise of their pairing flickers like a beacon across storm water. When the cuts hurry or the dialogue dodges, that flame dims. Ed Westwick as Lord Brooke is a different flavor of certainty. He knows exactly how to inhabit a villain who prowls instead of bellows. The chill in his voice, the stance that turns a ballroom into a battlefield, the absolute confidence that order will bend to him, he wears all of it with ease. There are episodes where his presence edges into dominance, and oddly, that's good for the show. A hero becomes sharper when the darkness in front of him is carved cleanly. Lord Brooke tilts the scales and makes Sandoken's choices feel heavier, sharper, more consequential. You can feel that tension not only in confrontations but in the way Marianna's world tightens whenever Brooke enters a room. Yanez de Gomera, embodied by Alessandro Preziosi, arrives with a mischievous spark and then reveals a quiet gravity episode by episode. At first glance he is the relief, the man who can pour a joke into a tense moment and diffuse it. Then the character deepens until he's not just a companion but a conscience, offering counsel that cuts and care that steadies. The rapport between Yanez and Sandoken is one of the season's reliable pleasures. In those scenes, Kagate finds another register, a looseness that hints at who Sandoken could be when the crown of legend finally settles. What about the shape and skin of the show? The visual world is vivid. The tropical hues feel sunbitten rather than cartoonish, the colonial architecture broods. Costumes tell stories without a word. The swordplay is choreographed with attention, and the naval battles carry weight even when you notice the budget flexing at the edge of what television usually allows. There are moments when the effects wobble, but the atmosphere holds. You see the chaos of the pirate world and the rigid lines of imperial order collide, and that collision is the canvas the actors paint on. Off-screen, the phenomenon did what phenomena do. Whenever Kagate and Hazal share a project, the conversation balloons beyond the series itself. From day one, clips bounced across social platforms, behind-the-scenes photos stirred comment sections, and every training image of Kagate transformed into a talking point. Hazal's preparation, her period diction, her posture in corsets and constraints, spun their own threads of fascination. Fans in Turkey, Italy, and far beyond built a chorus, while the international press lifted the story into yet another round of headlines. The cultural footprint is real, and it matters because television success now lives partly online, in waves of perception and passion. So was the season a triumph or a missed chance? The fair answer lands in the honest middle. Call it a measured win. On one hand, the production carries ambition in every frame, the action sings, Ed Westwick and Alessandro Preziosi deliver clarity and charisma, and Kagate looks born to grip a cutlass. On the other, the romance that should anchor the storm sometimes floats, the tempo stumbles and stretches, and the emotional excavation feels incomplete. None of these are fatal. They are fixable. In fact, they hint at an upside that a second season could unlock if the writers lean into what is already alive. The chemistry that flares when the camera simply watches, the inner conflict that needs time instead of shortcuts, the path to leadership that wants sharper steps. Speaking of next steps, the plan points to spring or summer 2026 for the return. That runway is a blessing if used well. Imagine a season that hardens Sandoken's resolve while tearing at his doubts, that grants Lady Mariana a spine of choices the plot cannot ignore, that lets their shared scenes breathe until the audience forgets to blink. Imagine a Lord Brooke who tightens the screws with a new obsession, and a Yanez who draws lines that test friendship and loyalty. The legend isn't complete, it's mid-forge. Give it heat and time, and it could glow. For all the analysis, the simplest truth might be this. The first season proved there's a living pulse here. We saw a lead who can command a deck and a gaze, a partner whose quiet storms read as modern and timeless all at once, and antagonists who sharpen the edges. We also saw where the sails need tightening. If the second season deepens relationships, steadies pacing, and lets feeling land, Sandoken could shift from a handsome revival to a defining chapter for everyone involved. Especially for Kagate and Hazal, who carry both the promise and the pressure of public expectation. Is Kagate truly Sandoken? In movement and presence, yes. In the hidden rooms of the heart, not yet, but he's reaching. Is Hazal the core of Lady Mariana? She is, and when the script meets her halfway, the screen understands why Marianna would defy a world. Did the legend awaken? It stirred, opened its eyes, and looked out to sea. Now it has to stand, walk, and command. What will we say when the next season ends? Will we talk about a love story that finally took root, about a leader born on screen in real time, about a series that kept its promises? Or will we still be asking what might have been? Your turn to decide. Tell me in the comments what worked for you, what didn't, and whether you believe the second season will crown the myth or close the book too soon. If you enjoyed this deep dive, subscribe and stay close to Turkish series stars so you don't miss the next breakdown. In our upcoming videos, we'll look behind the curtains of new sets, whisper about casting battles, and keep chasing the glint of scandal through the corridors of show business. Until then, keep testing the old stories against the new light. Goodbye, and Happy New Year.